CSKT, I'll call the meeting to order. Jen, will you do roll call, please?
Mike Dolson,
I'm here. Thank you.
Tom McDonald,
Here.
Jennifer Finley. Here. Jim Molitor. Here. Carol Langford. She will be in after her appointment. Danielle Matt. Here. Bing Matt. Here. James Steele Jr.
Una.
Martin Charlo.
Present.
Len Tuteeth. Lanish Trahan.
Thank you, Jen. Bing, could I ask you to please send a prayer this morning? I'm not sure.
My name is Cullen Sutton. We thank you, Creator, for your blessings that you give us. We thank you today for bringing in people from Arley today to discuss the water issues up there. We just thank you for letting them be concerned about what's going to happen with the water and what's going to happen up there, Father Lord. Father, we just thank you for your blessings you give for our children, our grandchildren, and most of all our elders. Father, we just thank you for watching over those that are emergency people, that are with fire departments, our firefighters, our law enforcement. We just thank you for watching over them. And Father Lord, we just ask that you give us blessing, give the council a blessing today and let them deal with the issues that they got to deal with today, Father Lord. And we just thank you in your name. Amen.
Bing. Morning, Len. All right, we have minutes from August 13th, the first order of business for your consideration.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, on the first page, I emailed Abby the name, Nolan Michelle, and I think Jennifer Trahan's working on the name for the lady that was with the BPA that was here. So I think we're going to get those to Abby for the minutes.
Thank you, James.
All right, motion to approve the minutes with corrections.
Motion by Len to approve the August 13th minutes with corrections.
Second.
Second by James. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
I'll abstain, Tom.
All right. You have everybody except for Mike is abstaining.
And
Or
he's
missing from the meeting. Thank you. Okay, we have today's agenda. Does council have any other additions or changes to the agenda? One item, Martin? And we have walk-ins? One walk-in? Lolita? Or you're not? Jeez. Well, I know you got that scary guy sitting beside you, you know. You might have lost him by now. Oh my goodness. Oh. That was up by your neck of woods, wasn't it? Wow. Okay. Well, in a moment here, we got to approve our agenda. So any other motion by Len to approve today's agenda with the additions? Second by Danielle. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? We'll call that unanimous. Mike, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So let's take your walk-ins. Come on up, however you want to do it. Portable mic. I don't know if it works. Well, then you can see if we can get one. Well, sit down and grab a chair. So I know, Lolita texted me message yesterday, so I know what, it's about the stock water, in the water compact, the removal of stock water. That was authorized when President Trump signed it into law. Okay, so that's the issue. And it's been delayed ever since then. It's like kick it out another year, kick it out another year. We did delay that action for another year. So to give time for people to adjust or, get stock water wells, or in your case, Lolita, even a house well, to try to figure out those things. But yeah, please go ahead. Push the button on the mic though, Lolita. There's a button down below and you get a red light on the top of the mic.
There we go. Cool. All right. My family has lived in that little area of the Jocko Valley since the early 30s, and we had some pretty important neighbors. We had Martin's family live right next. They had the allotment right next door. We had the Antwins and the Felixes, and they used that. My nephew could find little areas where all up and down that ditch where they had sweats, and they used, we call it the ditch. I guess the S canal is the correct name for it. But we, as I have lived, I'm 75 years young, and I've lived most of my life on that hill. And that is notorious for having a hard time finding water in a well. There's groundwater, and my mom and dad had a spring. That's where they got their water. And my husband, who does a lot of well work, thinks that there's no such thing as a spring in that area, that it's all groundwater or leakage from the S canal. And so, we didn't even bother because trying to get a well, because it was, my mother tried a well when she was there, and we have people that have wells that just produce very little. Carl and Matt, my nieces down below us, and they have wells, but they're very poor producing. So we didn't even bother to dig a well. We put in a cistern system, and my husband plumbed that into our house, and we filter it many times. And then we have a system under our sink that's a reverse osmosis. So that's how we buy our drinking water. And but there's no water to feed. If the S canal was gone, I have my nephew's cows there and bulls there, and they wouldn't be watered, and we would not have household water. And this happens throughout that little area up there. And so all these people can attest to how long that canal has been going, and they don't put a lot of water in it in the winter. I remember when there used to be a ditch right next to the county road, and they had a big head gate there. Well, when they turned that on in the spring, my mom was just like saying prayers of thanks, because then she didn't have to haul water so far from the spring, because it was right in the ditch close to it. And we hauled water by buckets for many, many years until Tribal Health, Chris Lozo, put us in a water system. And he just developed the spring and piped it down to our house. And so that's what my mom's house has to this day, is that use of that water. So, so anyhow, that's my story. And these guys all have cows, and they have other things that they want to talk about. So, okay, that's my story.
Thank you, Lolita.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I think everybody knows who I am. I'm Jim Lytle. And I live at the tail end of S Canal. So if that dries up, my well dries up. Besides my cattle. I mean, I depend on that year round for stock water for my cows. So when they do away with the upper S, it's gonna cause me a hardship. I'm gonna have to drill a new well, because I know darn well my well is gonna go dry, because it's iffy right now. And but I think the main concern is the stock water. I mean, that's gonna put a hard bundle on us if we gotta start packing water to our cows. It's gonna cost us money. It's gonna cost money to drill a well. And I think it could be prevented if we just kept a little water in that canal. I mean, just like Horatio there, that's gonna help them. And I think everybody down the line, I mean, once you stop, there's more than our wells that's impact from drying up S. It's gonna affect everybody down the line that's close to that canal. And I've lived up on the hill, up on my mom and dad's place for almost 70 years. And there was a little creek. We didn't get no running water or a bathroom in our house until I was in sixth grade. And that's what we lived off of, that little creek to come by the house. I mean, we bathed in it, we drank it, we did everything in it. But to me, it would be a pretty big impact if they took that water away. I mean, in a lot of different sources, just not stock water households, just a lot of different deals. About all I got to say.
Thank you, Zim.
I'm Clark, Matt. I lived here most of my life, I'm 77 now. Long time ago, our elders built the dam, first dam. They dug the ditches a long time ago with understanding before reclamation took over that the Indians will get free water. But reclamation come in, put head gates on all the farmers. So we get charged for the head gate for the water every year. So we only get the water for like 3 months out of the year for irrigation. And you pay a lot now today for water to irrigate your land. Then in the last few years, I know when the tribes start shutting the ditches off, like down on Jocka Road, they shut the ditches off going off Treesides Hill and the one on Jocka Road. Well, a lot of them people lived on Jocka Road that lived below the ditch had to have new wells dug, and the tribe had to pay for a lot of them new wells. So my question is the tribe willing to pay for more wells for when you lose the water? Because the whole Jocko Valley has 9 rivers that run underground. More houses are built to river levels drops down every year. So S Canal supplies most of the water in the Jocko Valley for those rivers that come through and supply water to the whole Jocko Valley. Then I remember when up on Mountain Home, well, it used to be Matt 1, Matt 2, now it's J1, J2. That water used to run year round until they started shutting it off. We used to catch fish there year round
Us too, yeah.
on them ditches. Now you go to the canal below me, on E Canal, you can't catch a fish. You might see a beaver swimming in the water now. It used to be loaded with fish. Same with S Canal up there. Used to be fish, plenty of fish. Now you can't even catch fish because wildlife resources has taken it away from us and from my elders that used to depend on the fish to live on. We used to fish the river like Jocko from Nance's place, about a half mile past Nance's place. This time of the year, the river used to go dry till you got past the bridge. You walked down about a mile past the bridge, Grace's Bridge, then the water came back up. I remember when I was young and as a fisher, as a young person, we used to walk that all the way up and go by Nance's and start fishing back up to Jocko. So when you shut the water, or even do like you talk about mudding the canals and stuff, you're going to affect a lot of people. Because I can see that pipeline going by Everett Fayance. When they pipeline that, I know that Everett Fayance place will probably have to have a new well because that's surface water supplying water to his well. Then like down at the ranch now, our whole table on water with that 4 wells there. It's over 200 some feet. But now table in the last year, we had to put another pump in my daughter's, and it's dropped. So you think in the years as you take water away, how many wells is the tribe willing to pay and dig for the loss of water by mudding the canals and doing what they're doing to our natural resources that was given from Creator years ago? And the only way we get winter water down the ranch now is to The original ditch from the McClure ditch that comes through there. That's the only way you get water in the stock water in the winter time. So you have to look at your people when you talk about water. But we only pay for the water a certain time. Now you're taking it away from us, giving it to the fish, giving 2 more feet to the water, to the river. What the people here could be still irrigating, trying to get hay to raise their cattle. So you have to look at the all outlook of the people on the reservation and how many are affected. Thank you.
And
Let's
have
go.
they done a study about the animals and the fish and the frogs and everything? That if you dried up the canal, what would that happen? You've studied all this down below, but have you studied it hasn't gone dry since it was created in 1908 or something like that. And so do you know what the study will be? I mean, there are things to think about.
The other question was, you talk about fish. They say cutthroat was a native fish here. In 1975 and 76, our tribe brought fish in from off reservation and planted into lakes all the way to the Jocko. But these fish didn't come from this reservation, because even we had fish hatcheries here, they come off reservation. The fish that was raised here on reservation went off reservation to other lakes. So you're not, I always thought if you raise fish here, you should actually naturally, with the water, you would naturally put them back into your lakes, but it don't, apparently don't work that way.
Well, I can pretty confidently tell you that's not correct, Clark, but that's okay. I mean, your opinion on that's your opinion, but there were native fish here, and there were West Slope cutthroat trout here on our reservation. So since the beginning of time.
I didn't say there wasn't cutthroat. I'm just saying, but they planted a bunch back. In the
Oh
day.
yeah, we planted all over. My great uncles planted all over,
Yeah.
fish all over the place. But the original source of West Slope cutthroat trout for hatcheries came from Crazy Fish Lake in the South Fork of the Jocko. That's the seed source. But yeah, anyway, go ahead.
I'm Charlie Hanson, and I live right at Blodgett Creek, and I got the same concerns as these guys do. Lived there my whole life, and the fish between Big Knife and Agency, we've been wandering up and down that creek just like Clark said forever. And this time of year, Carrie Doney and I used to chase fish up and down from Agency all the way down to his place, and they were spawning in there, and there was hundreds of cutthroat in there, little guys, and that's what we did. But there's, from Big Knife to Agency, there's several little contributaries that feed the canal. Right below Big Knife, we lose a ton of water right on he knows exactly where it's at, second corner down. It hits right below that pond, and then it goes to the river. If we fix that situation there and had a trickle of water from Big Knife to Agency, trickle from there down to the end, then with the contributaries that's already there, would probably produce us enough stock water to sustain what we need for now. But if the cost of replacing everybody's stock water in all the wells, I don't know the exact number, what it would be, but the cost to replace everybody's stock water and the wells would be way more of a cost than it would be to just leave a little trickle of water in S Canal. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Good.
Any other comments from anybody? Yep, go ahead. Oh, wait, go ahead, Zim, and then we have one more. Go ahead.
Okay. My belief, and I've.
Push the button though.
There. I've been around that system for almost 40 years, that whole system. And my belief is that I believe that there's enough water for the compact and for us guys for stock water and well that we can share it. I believe there's enough water there. I mean, and just like Charlie was saying, so we start damming up a few of these little tribunes that come in, there's gonna be enough water for us. I just don't think that it has to be shut off September 15th, boom. I mean, that's gonna, That's gonna put a pretty big impact on a lot of us, most of us, all of us, really. So.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Tia Espinoza. My primary concern is Stevens Creek, which crosses the canal and then runs through my property. When my parents originally moved onto the property, they attempted to dig 2 or 3 wells. They weren't able to get water, and so they were granted permission to build a water system that was fed by Stevens Creek. And so now, if the canal is turned off, I think it's likely there won't be enough volume in Stevens Creek to reach our property. So I don't have the livestock concerns or the irrigation concerns, but it's the only source of water for my family. So I don't think a well is an option on our property, and I don't know, I don't have any backup plan for a secondary source of water. So that's just my concern.
Thank you, Tia.
I have a question. What happened to the secondary of water rights, like J1, J2 has secondary water rights? Do we still have the secondary water rights to the?
That's, the secretarial ditches are a unique creation in time and history. I can't tell you if they're, a good portion of those, like in my family's ranching operation, we had the Wall ditch, the McDonald ditch, Fourth of July ditch. They ran year round. Yeah, they run year round. And they would have a fisheries in them, small little ditches, but they would return back to the creek in a pretty short duration of time. And they were utilized for irrigation and stock water, just like the operations you guys are talking about. Those are those ditches that predate this system, that predates the irrigation system. So just like you said, one of the very first beautiful places for irrigation on this reservation was the Jocko Valley. And there it was. I mean, our people had created their own private ditches and had that. And then the irrigation system came after that because those people down in the Missoula Valley and Bitterroot were jealous. Here were these fantastic crops that the Indians were producing up here on the reservation. They said, what's going on? And that led to the success of irrigation and farming by our people in the Jocko Valley. Was one of the contributing factors for this reservation being open to homesteading. And it's unfortunate because everybody wants what's on the other side of the fence. They want their neighbor's stuff. They covet that. And that's one of the things that happened because those ditches are there. I don't know, the goal for a lot of them were to try to keep the fish from being, captured and stuck into that system. That it's not part of a natural creek. So a lot of them, they tried to screen. We've done some screening over the years to try to screen those secretarial ditches. And a lot of them were consumed by the project and in the creation of the project. So I don't know the true history of the mat ditches or any of that. That would be someone from our shop, either Casey Ryan or one of the other experts, even maybe Shane might know something about it. But that's a good question. And it's a good question if those could be kept on year round. The thing that the council did was ask the BIA to produce, let's be site specific here, where there is a true need for stock water and what would be the effect to the natural streams if we continued that practice or at least allowed it to happen till NRCS or some other venue could provide some more wells that, to help ranchers that need stock water. That's one of the questions, just like Zim said. Is it possible to keep something going and not have that effect on the fisheries? We have to comply with the Threatened and Endangered Species Act. And that's the big player here, in particular where we have bull trout. And so bull trout life cycle really is dependent upon right now, water flows right now through the fall for their life cycle, the lowest time of the year. And when the water is the lowest and quite possibly the warmest. And so if they don't have and can't access their spawning reaches or complete their life cycle, or they get dewatered because of something we do, then that's a taking, that's a loss of that fish, and you can't do that. The BIA can't allow that to happen. Shane can't, under his watch, violate the Threatened and Endangered Species Act. None of us can. So that's the first issue that we need to make sure that that's taken care of. Cutthroat trout, they're they should be listed. They should be a threatened endangered species also. West Slope cutthroat trout are, I think they're down to maybe 5% of their historic range. Of all the land they used to occupy, we're down to 5%. Maybe it's more, I don't know, Shane, is it probably 2%? So yeah, that's amazing to me. And so that's another consideration. But to think that we would, can't come up with a way to use the massive amount of funding we got for the water compact for the betterment of the irrigation project. Because we've talked about the Jocko Valley, knowing how much that artificial system we've created as supplements the groundwater for people there is incredible. And when you turn that all into pipe, what does that mean? I mean, how many shallow wells are going to dry up? How is that going to affect everybody in various locations? You're describing one area basically of the Jocko Valley and describing what you think and know might happen. So those are all the great discussions that we put forward to our staff. I know Bing's brought it up many times and Jimmy's brought it up. What's going to happen with the Jocko when we put all this in pipe? What's going to happen? And so we've talked about, is there a community system needs to be put in? Does it need to be like Round Butte, where it's a community domestic system for people's houses? Because, or is it going to be a cistern thing, like up on the Polson Moraine? Those are all cisterns. People haul their water for their houses. They've been doing that since this place has been open to homesteading. So they haul water and to live in those houses. And so we really have to try to do the best we can with the resources we have. And stalling right now seems to be a good idea to get more help to you, to help, develop some stockwater wells or get domestic wells put in place, or try to figure out a community system that will alleviate part of the problem. But to take some of the ditches that I witnessed, in my life, I was a monkey wrench gang guy. Even on our own ranch, we wanted to make sure that the fish had water. But to take and charge, 10 miles a ditch, for stock water and dewater a stream for that purpose in the fall is not an acceptable practice today. It just can't happen. We know better. We don't want to lose all that water, conveying it to get to that, to the water trough. There's got to be a better way. Maybe it's piping. Maybe we're still using surface water, but we got to get that in a better way, in a more efficient delivery system out to where it's needed for our ranches and our domestic uses. But we have to be able to do a better job. And so the water compact calls for those types of things. And I don't know if anybody else wants to add for any discussion to this, but there is some funding, there is some relief. We'll try to put the best we can forward to you to utilize. And hopefully we can come out with a win-win for everybody. I don't know how we can skirt federal law, and the water compact is also federal law. So that the stock water operation that used to occur across the entire reservation, it's not unique to Jocko. It's occurred here in the Mission Valley and elsewhere. It's one of those things that's a paradigm that has to change. And how we can do it most effectively, cause the least impact to you, is our goal. There's no doubt about that. So whatever we can do to help you, we're going to try to do that. So I don't know what the Fish and Wildlife Service says if we stall more. I don't know. I don't know what they'll say. Shane probably has a better idea what they'll say to us, but we want to make sure that when we rebuild the system, we do with all those things in consideration. And so, we can't waste any water anymore with climate change. We simply can't. That snow reservoir is going and will diminish to where we're just capturing rainwater. And so those irrigation reservoirs are really going to be a critical component, especially for the Jocko Valley versus the snowpack storage, that reservoir. So we need to think about every single drop like it's your last drop of water into the future for your kids, for your grandkids, and how we do that efficiently. times are changing and we all got to do the best thing we can. I know that the fish will be appreciative of that. I know how these ditches, especially secretarial ditches, can turn into a living, breathing stream. You know, I really do. I do understand that. Some of my best fishing has been in those secretarial ditches. And, you know, it's okay as long as they have, those fish can come back and forth. They can escape and it's not affecting the life cycle of the total population. To me, it's okay. It may not be the other folks that are naturalists, but it is for me. So adding the site specificity of knowing where your issue is it possible to still do some delivery? We need that information. Does it cause any effect? We need to know that information. So like Zim says, does it really hurt something to leave a little bit of water to make it down to this end point? We need to know that. We need to have that answer from the project managers. And then we also need to have our scientists and our hydrologists look at that and factor that in to see if that's justifiable. But in the interim, we need to get people more wells. We need to probably go deeper. And it's going to be one of those ever adapting type of situations until we put in a community system that's a pipe that delivers water to stock water, delivers water to households that are going to be impacted by the system. That's at least my opinion.
Yeah, I got another question. Why we don't do a better job of managing our dams in the springtime like they should have backed up the water to Black Lake? Black Lake this year was low. You know, they didn't have the snow. Why wasn't the dam closed to back the water up? So you're not only talking about our area, I'm talking about the rest. I mean, why we should have a better plan of management, I would think. Because that Black Lake was really low this spring because they didn't back the water up. Got afraid of a high water flow and they didn't get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you have to look over all the, look, you talk about the impact of affecting the people, affecting everybody on the whole valley. I mean, that's a question. Just, and I know they took 2 feet of water this year. That was plus once the ranchers. They're going to the river right now. County, your geologist or whoever you have that's saying it has to go to the fish. So
I know part of the improvements to the irrigation projects was all the information that our water resource program has put together. And I can let Casey talk about the forecasting, all the modeling and the way they're trying to do improvements to improve the way the irrigation project can operate into the future. And Casey, I'll call on you right now.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I appreciate that. Happy to speak to a couple things. So I apologize that I joined late. I was in a call with the USGS when this started, but I did hear a couple things. I heard some concern regarding the curtailment of off-season stock water deliveries. And so that is accurate. Stock water continues to remain included as an incidental use of water in the compact. And so in-season stock water delivery, that will continue for FIP assessed customers that are provided by the project, and that's prescribed in their operations and maintenance guidelines. As the vice chairman was saying, you know, part of that negotiated agreement was the curtailment of these off-season stock water deliveries. And so as part of the recognition that that would affect producers, there is a pot of money set aside to provide relief for those folks. So I don't know if it was spoken about, but the compact implementation technical team is currently working with the Montana DNRC to develop an off-season stock water mitigation grant funding program. And that would be a pot of money that folks could apply for. And that would allow people to do projects such as maybe a pipe or a new well or developing a spring on your property in order to get off-season stock water for your cattle. The CITT is currently working through the guidelines for that program. I would anticipate that that would be something that would come out later this fall and early winter, and there will be public noticing regarding that. So I would strongly encourage the folks in the room to look for that and to apply for those funds when they become available, because they are intended for folks just like you. I also understand that Mr. Austin Allen at the NRCS office there in Pablo has some money available for stockwater mitigation for tribal producers. I do not know the specific sideboards on those funds, but if you are someone who is going to be affected by this, I would highly encourage you to give Austin and his office a call and see if you might be available for one of those projects as well. I also heard the topic of secretarial water rights being addressed, and so if you are a tribal member or a lattee who has an existing use of water, you are eligible to register that under the tribal water right. And so the Tribal Water Rights Registration Office has been advertising in the Charcusta for the last couple months, and it has some more details in that advertisement. And so I would encourage folks to, if you have a secretarial ditch or existing use of water, to look at that and maybe reach out to the Tribal Water Rights Registration Office to see if your use of water is eligible, and if you can register as part of that tribal water right. So folks would have until September 17th, 2026 to do that under the settlement. The other thing I heard mentioned was I've gotten a couple questions recently about some of the Natural Resources Department irrigation infrastructure projects, including some piping on the south side of the river. So currently, we only have plans to do a pipeline in the Jocko Valley on the north side of the Jocko River. We don't have any active contracts to do any kind of piping on the south side of the river from our office. We set up a website, CSKTwatercompact.com, and that has our projects on there, including maps of where those projects are going to be. So if folks have questions about, what we're up to and what the irrigation infrastructure upgrades are going to be in the foreseeable future, I would highly encourage you to visit that website, CSKTwatercompact.com. And we try to put all the exhibits up there, maps, any kind of public information that folks might want to look at so that you can get in and look at those projects. And then the last topic that I heard addressed was Mr. Vice Chair was talking about some of the water management for this year. So this was, I can't speak to the day-to-day of FIPS operations because that's the FIP, the BIA that operates those. But just from a water management and planning perspective, I can say it was a challenging year for the project. So the snowpack up in the South Fork of the Jocko was near historic lows for much of the year. And it was a tough year. It was a tough water year, frankly. And so I know that has affected the projects. It's affected their ability to catch and deliver water. And we're just seeing more of that every year. It's been a challenging climate. We're seeing earlier runoff, and I think the project is going to be really challenged to deliver water into the future. We are providing them with all the data we can, including snowpack data, surface water data, and groundwater data. We're just in a changing climate, so I think we're going to have to be smart about water planning and water management moving forward. So our office is fully committed to trying to provide all the information and data to the project we can to help them manage the multiple uses of water here on the reservation. I see Councilman Charlo has put up our website, and so that's the CSKT Water Compact Implementation website. It has a map there on the front page. It also has a list of active projects. And if folks are interested in learning more, I'd highly encourage you to contact us here at the Natural Resources Department. We also have an open house in the Jocko Valley on the 19th and 21st of August regarding the Jocko Pipelines project. So if folks are interested in that, our staff are going to be posted up down there in our lee, and they'll be answering questions about that project for anyone who is interested.
But the question is, where are you having it?
Sorry, Mr. Matt?
Where are you planning to have this meeting you're talking about?
I believe that is going to be down there in the Brown building, which is where we did our last one. I'm trying to look up the advertisement for that. I can try to confirm that here in the background.
I got another question, like I don't do email or have a computer. How is this information available to me on paper so I can read it?
If, if you're not a website person, I would highly encourage you to give us a call. I'd be happy to sit down with some maps and show you what we're working on. We are also working on getting some public noticing. So our irrigation infrastructure program is putting some exhibits together to send out with that FIP newsletter. And if you'd like, we'd be happy to publish that in the Charcusta as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are at the head of the ditch, as Canal's at the top. He is familiar with most of the leakage and everything that is there. So as much money as they need from the lower valley down, if we have more studies on what can contribute to all of the leakages and all of the from S Canal that comes down and collect that water to take to these stock water people, from a collection box to a water tank to a pipe or whatever, is going to save a ton of money if you leave a trickle of water in S Canal while this study is existing. If you shut it off now, you're going to find out that everything goes dry. But if you keep it running so we can develop these spots, develop these collection boxes, pipe it down to the next neighbor, pick up their runoff, pipe it down to the next neighbor, because S Canal trickles out from the top of S Canal all the way to the fish hatchery and to the river. It don't just stay underground. We got swamps and everything everywhere. So if we develop those in your study, then these people might have enough stock water to exist and utilize that money downstream someplace else. Thank you.
Good suggestion. Thank you. So Casey, you mentioned a couple of different funding opportunities. So the most immediate one would be the state tribal compact funding. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, Mr. Vice Chair, the most immediate one would be at the NRCS office there in Pablo, right next door to y'all. So Austin Allen has a pot of money available to help tribal producers with stock water. I know that there are some sideboards on those projects. I want to say that they have to be associated with a center pivot. So he might be the best person to speak to his pot of money and what sideboards exist on that. But, affected users, I would encourage you to just visit with him and see if you might be eligible for some of those. And then the other one that you mentioned, Mr. Vice Chair, is the opportunity through the Compact Implementation Technical Team. That is going to be administered by the DNRC, and those guidelines are being actively written right now. So those will be released. We hope to release them in the next couple months. The idea is that folks would apply for those funds in the off season, late fall into winter, and then issue award meetings in the spring.
Okay, so that the DNRC funding would come, you'd apply through that through Helena, through their office?
So it'll be a local grant funding. So we will advertise in local papers, try to make it available and advertise it to everyone here on the reservation. So it'll be a local process. It'll be advertised in the Charcusta. We'll do our best to get the word out there for folks, and there'll be an application period where folks can put in a proposal. Here's my project. Here would be the proposed plan for stock water, and then there's a pot of money set aside to provide relief for folks. So it's not something that's available right now, but it's something that's being actively and expeditiously developed so that it'll be available to folks in the next couple months.
So in developing that criteria, your technical team, the issues that you heard today or what you know about from the potential loss of water from leakage, et cetera, or charging the canals year round, those would be addressed and they qualify under the criteria you're talking about.
Correct. If there are stock water users down there who rely on off-season stock water diversions from the K Canal or S Canal, those are exactly the sorts of folks for whom this program was envisioned and is being developed.
Casey, what is the total amount available that this will make available?
The total contribution to this program is $4 million. So there's $4 million available that is set aside specifically for off-season stock water mitigation. And that's through the compact implementation technical team. And Mr. Vice Chair, if I may, I just got confirmation that the public meetings in the Jocko will be at the Arley Community Center.
I got one other question. So up in our corner of the world, secretarial water right on one particular piece of ground and the assessed water right, we can't want to develop a pipeline, but the secretarial water right, you can't run through the pipeline. You only can run the user water through the pipeline. So the reason why we did this or doing this is when you turn on the secretarial water right, you put it into a ditch and it floods out to 2 houses down below it. So I would like to find out who to get with to be able to put secretarial water right in the pipe so we can use it to sprinkle as well, so we don't flood out the houses below.
My guess would be the project engineer for FIP would be the person that you would talk to with that.
Okay.
I know we ended up, secretarial, we sold our ranch, but on Post Creek, we had a secretarial ditch and, we ended up abandoning our ditch to move it into the project, that water into the project ditch, and then have a new diversion point so that the fish cream could be used for it. So the conveyance for our secretarial ditch was the FIP project for a short duration. So they can be mixed, at least they have in the past. That was quite a while ago. So, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
There's 2 programs available for stock water. One, to my understanding, one doesn't have the funding available right now, and the other one has sideboards on it with Austin that requires center pivots and other requirements. So for this coming year, with no other option for money, there's really, right now, there's no money available right now. There's going to be, but nothing right now to help us. So could we put this drying up Escanel off a year? Is that an option?
We have. We took that action.
Or for 2 years?
Well, for this upcoming year, and then we asked for site specificity from the irrigation project for if we could nail this down. So what I always struggled with, back in the day as a kid growing up and then working in the fisheries program and then again working for natural resource department was in this particular issue is that, well, if you're providing stock water for one person, you got to provide it for everybody. And so how do we afford that over the entire irrigation project on the reservation? How is that even possible? It's not possible. And what was going on was having a very disastrous effect and causing this loss of fisheries from bull trout and cutthroat trout. And so all the cumulative effects is why they're down to 2% of their range and bull trout are hanging on by whatever. It's those issues. And so it's one of those things that let's be very specific. If you're going to do this, it's not a blank check for everybody. It's where it's truly needed. And it's needed where it's not going to have a devastating effect to the native fishery of the stream nearby. And so if we can pull that off, that's a win-win. And it buys us a lot of time. But I can guarantee you, we still need to look at other ways for the long-term operation of farms and ranches and domestics and for the in-stream flow requirements for the fisheries. We need to look at different ways no matter what, because snowpack's going. I mean, I'm sorry, it's going. And it's going to be very hard to be able to think about how we're going to manage water without a lot of improvements. I mean, really, a lot of improvements. So if we need to look at ways to get this, funding to you in a longer sort of way, then we will look at that. But, if we can identify that it's not a disastrous effect, then that gives more ammunition for us to deal with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. To be able to say, no, this is very site specific, you know, we might be able to get by with doing something very simple and be a win-win for everybody. Because it's an improvement. If we can get that water to your stock water delivery point without losing a drop of it to get it there, oh my God, that's a huge thing. And that's the majority of water in this irrigation project, as you all know, is lost in the delivery of it. It just goes right down. And a lot of people, you know, as Waleed has mentioned and others have mentioned, have developed real shallow groundwater wells based on that continual seasonal recharge from the irrigation system. And that will dry up no matter what we say or do over time. So how can we can fix that for individual households and how we can fix that for individual farms and ranches? That's our due diligence. And we do have some money and we want to make it work and work best for everybody. Go ahead, Zim.
Well, I think the biggest concern here today of most of these people is shutting the water off this year right now. I mean, that put a panic on a lot of people. What are they gonna do or how are we gonna do it? But you pretty much explained it. There is a plan to do all of this in the future, I mean, you guys got money set aside, there's money there so they can drill stock water wells or whatever they got to do. But I think their biggest concern was this year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Bing brought that forward to us dramatically. And we had our legal team and hydrologists and other specialists, and we discussed it. And that was the compromise. Let's stall again for, it's been 4 years now.
Yeah.
And you got to admit, I mean, look at what's going on. You know, look at last year. Look at last year, there wasn't enough water to fill Flathead Lake. And, you know, and of course, anytime that happens, that they blame us for it, right? It's not that Golden Sun Road opened up the earliest ever in history, or that, you know, the North Fork Flathead River coming out of Canada is the lowest it's ever been recorded. That's our fault, right? It's not our fault. That's climate change. That's what's happening out there. And so we really got to be able to think about how we change our operations and want to do that very effectively as best we can. So I think if we have some extra time, we'll try to do that. I would make sure that when this announcement comes out from the state and tribal funding for the DNRC is going to manage, that's a key thing. That $4 million is very critical. And if you got an idea or a plan, let's be presenting it and let's see if we can't get it funded. I know that Casey and others they're really sharp guys and they're going to come up with different strategies. But we don't want to run someone out of business. Nobody wants that. But we want to make sure that we don't wipe out a fisheries. You know, bull trout, what can I say about them? They were, you know, when I heard everything from my, you know, Walter and Charlie and listened to the first elders talk about them, you know, when we ran out of buffalo meat, what did we go to? We went to bull trout. We could keep bull trout in the streams as easy as possible. And so they were one of those things the Creator put for us to, you know, keep us alive for 10,000 years. And we owe bull trout something. We can't, it's not our place to say you don't deserve to exist anymore. That's the Threatened and Endangered Species Act. Let's protect them. Let's do our due diligence to give back to bull trout. Let's make sure, I mean, even if you believe in the Bible, you know, Noah's Ark, every species is supposed to be here on this planet. And so we want to make sure that happens. And it's certainly, we have the ability to do that. We have the smarts, the intellect, the ability. That trout doesn't have the ability to get a water tender and haul water to a cistern to dump into the creek to keep them alive. He doesn't have that ability, right? But we do. We have that ability. So certainly we can figure out ways to make this happen. And if we can use the funds that have been created to do that, and it actually improve your operation over today's current situation, man, that's a win. You know, that's a win.
I got a question now. You talk about bull trout now, just last fall now. Mission Dam had bull trout until they made it like, took all the water out of Mission Dam and made it look like a little creek, so. That wasn't very, when you went up there, it didn't look very good because it looked really
No.
like just a creek run instead of a
They-
dam. I
they-
mean,
Part of the systems improvement that Casey's shop has been doing is trying to make sure they automate what their operations are, so they know if they got a problem and they're releasing too much water. And they did, actually a few years ago, they had a major fish kill. They killed basically every fish in Mission Reservoir. The bull trout in Mission Reservoir, are not pure bull trout anymore. They've been hybridized with brook trout. So they're a brook bull mix. So they're not protected by the Threatened Endangered Species Act anymore. That population's been lost. So anytime you have a population that's still an isolate population, like in McDonald Lake or up in the Jocko, that's a critical supply line for bull trout in their existence on this planet. And we don't want to lose them. We want to make sure that happens. So a lot of times the project has been a benefit. When you think about a dam put in place and there's no fish passage, that McDonald Lake population is a huge population for us. Mission Reservoir was, and then the brook trout was able to get up through the system and get into the Mission Reservoir, and they crossbred with them. We thought they were sterile, like a mule, but they weren't. They turned out to be fertile, and we ended up with this hybrid population. But we want to fix that. We don't want any wasted fisheries like that. We don't want the irrigation project drying up reservoirs or mismanaging the stream. We want to make it the best we can. We want to dummy proof it the best we can. So the operators, which a lot of times is one of our tribal members, that they have a good cookbook. They have a good recipe, a good thing to follow. So they know how to operate the thing in a better fashion.
Are you raising bull trout in the fish hatcheries?
No, that's not possible. They can't do bull trout in the fish hatchery.
Why?
They're too super sensitive to being raised in a hatchery, and they're so unique to their location that they're from. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service determined that was not feasible or what you would want to do for bull trout. What they can do is grab them from a like drainage nearby and transplant them from a viable population in the wild and move them into another one. And so that's what they focus on rather than raise them in a hatchery.
Thanks.
Yeah, Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for coming in. And, yeah, I grew up next to your mom, Lolita, and Charlie, bike right away, rode that canal my whole life. And, yeah, I'm worried about the changes that are gonna happen too. I mean, we drilled 2 wells in my lifetime, actually 4 now that I think about it. And yeah, the water there is bad, you know. My mom used to call it the best water in the world, but now that I think about it, it probably wasn't that great, but definitely, you know, we'll do what we can to help you guys out. I worry about what the changes are going to be, but then you think about how it was when it was actually natural, and you know, a lot of this wasn't the way it was. So yeah, we have a spring next to our house too, and I don't think that's gonna, once they improve everything, I don't know if that'll be there anymore. But yeah, I appreciate you guys coming in, and yeah, thank you guys.
Any more comments? Well, like Casey said, will be announcements, and Clark, stop by Casey's office, and he's got everything there, and stop as many times as you want, and they'll show you all this stuff if you don't have access to it online. And a lot of it's hard to even, you know, as simple as they make it today, it's hard for me to do. So a lot of times it's better for me to see it in print and, you know, see a map in person and have a live person to talk to. You can't, that's the best way to go. So.
Yeah,
Bing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank you all for coming in. It's good to sit up here and listen to all the what is said up here by you people. And by God, you guys know what the hell you're talking about. You know, and I get kind of in a little contest up here once in a while too with the same thing, especially when I heard about it, when we're gonna shut the water off, and then it was gonna be on September 15th, and I thought, hey, you're gonna have to have a meeting with them people up there to let you know that you're gonna happen. I said, when are you gonna do this? Well, we'll do it right away. Then next thing I heard, it was gonna be August 19th. I said, hell, that's only 3 weeks away. But then we decided to hold off on it, so that kind of savored a little bit of problems, and hopefully that we can get the money to help you guys out, and with Big Knife Creek and then Agency Creek and then McClure Creek and all them coming down through there, with subwater and whatnot, there's a lot of subwater that comes out of them creeks, and so hopefully that'll stay. They'll let that stuff, let that water stay in that canal so it can seep down into your guys' property. But it's just when I heard about this pipeline I was gonna go through up on a K canal up there, I said, hell, you're gonna drive every damn well up there on the south end of that reservation across that river. You're gonna dry every one of them damn things up. I said, a lot of them depend on that subwater coming in from that canal for their wells. I said, they're gonna dry them all up. So there's no pipe yet, but it's coming. So it's just a matter of time to see what's gonna happen to them wells. And I really do expect a lot of them to dry out. Because there's a lot of water that is lost out of that canal from seepage. So, I'm glad that they're not gonna do anything with that K canal or the S canal up there yet. And the canal that runs down by the church there too. I hope that they could keep some water in that canal too. It ought to come out of Agency Creek. But it's just the idea of not having this water anymore. It's going to be tough on a lot of people, and it's, like I say, it's just, I don't like to hear what's going to happen because I grew up in that area, been there all my life, and I know what that water means to a lot of you people, and putting these big pivots in and everything else in there that you really rely on that water for them pivots and whatnot. Not cheap to put them things in, and by God, you guys use that water for that and you get the hay crops that you get out of from them pivots, and it helps you guys a lot. It means a lot to you. So I was just wanna, maybe we can call a district meeting up there and have a meeting with just the members or whoever else that wants to have a district meeting up there after you guys have the meeting with Mr. Ryan and them. So hopefully, we'll see what happens, and then maybe Jimmy and I can get together and we'll call a district meeting up there and maybe have him come up and talk to you people some more about where they're at with everything, funding and whatnot. So, that we can, maybe you guys can have a better idea of what's going to happen down the road. But again, I want to thank you all for coming in, and Lolita called me the other day and was wanting to know what they had to do to come in to council. I said, well, just come in and as a walk-in and come and talk to the council, and then let them know your concerns about what's going on. And these are your people just from the Jocko Valley. The other valleys haven't heard anything yet, about their stock water. We haven't heard nothing from the other valleys about their stock water yet. So, but it's coming, and I'm glad that you folks come in and let the council know how you feel. And I thank you.
I'd like to thank the council for listening to us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in. You got our utmost respect, so we'll try to do the best job we can for you all. Yep,
Thanks.
you bet, Zim. Morning, John, you're up.
Good morning. We're here for approval for some task orders through SKMM. First one is number 117. It's HVACs. It covers 18 buildings and there's at least one in every community. If you go to page 32, that will tell you which buildings there are. The total for task order 117 comes to $916,532. And just looking for approval on that.
Any questions from council on task order 117, the continuation of the HVAC? Same story, just different buildings.
Yes, sir.
You can't let cottage into the building, so that's just make sure that doesn't happen. Motion by Martin to approve task order 117. Second by Jimmy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous.
The next task order 118 covers roofing. And that is on pages 38 and 39, the buildings it covers. There is 11 roofing areas that will be covered, and it is a total of $703,815.
We gave it to Dan Durglow to go ahead and move the pages for you while you're talking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it'd help you out there.
And I might add that this is ARPA funding, that what we're doing is trying to get it obligated and spent before the end of the year.
One question, John, when you're looking at these roofs, is there any consideration for the future of maybe putting solar panels on them? Is there any modifications you could do for that, or is that just too far out there to even think about?
No, hasn't been in any consideration, but I'm sure it could be. I don't think the modifications would be too extravagant that it would, require, too much extra money.
You would have to change the scope of work for that consideration. Go ahead, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and John and Dan. Actually, Dan, this question is for you. How long would it take to change that scope of work to include, was it the feasibility of solar panels or the modification of the roofing to fit solar panels?
I don't think that you would have to modify the roofing. Basically, all it is when you attach it to the roof, you're making sure it's sealed with rubber gaskets and the right kind of caulk, polyurethane caulk, that type of thing. You'd probably have to make a few penetrations in the roof, but if they're all sealed up, then there's no really no real issue with it.
You're basically saying if they can put a new roof on, it's good enough for solar panel.
I think so, most of them.
Any other questions, discussion? Motion by Martin to approve 118, task order 118, second by Bing. Any further discussion? See none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
And task order 119 is new doors and windows. This covers buildings in all communities on pages 59 through 62 with a total of $1,553,267. And I might add that with new doors and windows and HVAC and roofing through this ARPA funding, it's we're pretty lucky to have it. With the new increase in power this year through MVP, our bills the first 4 months of the year increased by $80,000 from the previous year. So that's $250,000 a year. And with these new doors and windows, highly or very well insulated and new roofing, some of the roofs we put on, we also add more insulation to them if they're not up to R49 as is. So this ARPA money is it's should help us out quite a bit.
Good comment, John. I know that a good window is worth its weight in gold. Learned that on my house. My house, the windows were so old, they say that glass flows. And I actually got my little mechanic micro measurement device, and the bottom was thicker than the top. My house was built in like 1904. And when I replaced the windows, they're big, tall windows. And yeah, they say that with churches and things like that, that the glass flows over time.
Single pane.
But what a difference. You put in good windows. Yeah, my electric bill, and at that time I had oil heat before I switched over to electricity. It was incredible to see the difference. Motion by Martin. Approve task order for the doors and windows, task order 119. Second by Jimmy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
I have one more request.
No.
It didn't get on the deal. It's task order 114. And this is just a modification and to extend the period of performance until September 30th. It was due to expire on Thursday. And instead of doing a whole new task order, if we can get this modification, that would be wonderful. So we can keep working. And it's for the Paulson Dental, adding new gas lines and new chairs, a couple new chairs.
All right, it's a motion to or task order 114 to extend the Olson Dental office improvements. Martin?
What was the reason for the delay of them not finishing?
For not finishing? Well, it was originally, it was effective July 30th through the 15th of this month, which is way too short a time when the office is being used or the dental area is being used. That always slows things up.
And I
Motion
would
by
just
Martin.
say there was a little bit of delay in materials coming in, and the plan is to have it done. It could be done this week and probably next week at the very latest, but we just wanted to give ourselves a little bit of time as we were getting closer to that end of that period of performance. So it'll be done well before September 30 and most likely before August 31.
Thank you, Dan. Motion by Martin, second by Bing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous for the extension, task order 114.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up,
Kevin Askin.
Kevin. I see you brought the pro, Gabe, with you. All right, we know that we got the think tank behind you right there, by golly.
I brought my brain with me
The
today.
true worker.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see everybody. I hope your summer was good. So today, what I come into council to request is that we can add 2 positions to our org chart. Now, what we're working on doing for our office and in reviving an old strategic plan we made for our office back in 2012, we wanted to create a preservation board. Now that would go along with updates to our Ordinance 95, which is our Cultural Resource Protection Ordinance that our tribe has in conjunction with our Tribal Historic Preservation Office. Now, as a sovereign nation, we are able to decide what and find our own criteria on what a site actually is. And what our tribe does is we also include intangible sites. Now, what that means is it's not just artifacts, it's not just scarred trees or anything that we can do physical science on, but we have a very alive spiritual and cultural following with all of our practitioners we have within our communities. Now, our ordinance is meant to try to capture that along with having a tribal historic preservation office. And having a tribal historic preservation office is similar to how the Montana has a SHPO, which is a state historic preservation office, which does not quite include intangible resources. They have a traditional cultural property system where we would enhance, or each tribe within Montana would enhance a TCP, it's called, with their ethnography per each respective tribe. Now, for us, we have always used the both the Selis, Kalispeh, and Sanka elder committees as our preservation board. I think right now, what would really help us is if we were able to have 2 elders on staff that were part of the current elder advisory committee as we develop our preservation board. And I really want to do our best to implement that plan, because we want to get to a point where we can start having checks and balances when we're measuring what the damages are to our sites on our reservation. Now, we do quite a bit of work off reservation with the respective, with all of our projects on federal and state for their undertakings and how they work to try to protect cultural resources the best they can with the laws that they have, which again includes quite a bit of physical science. For us, having the 2 elders is similar to what we had before. We used to have Matt Michelle and we had Matt Michelle. We had Mike Durgla Sr. and Stephen Small Salmon as part of our staff. And what that did was it helped us expedite and just assure that we had a confidence within each of the elder advisory committees when we did our work and did our monthly check-ins. As it is right now, we only do a 45-minute to 1 hour presentation per month. And I want to try to make sure we enhance our communication with the cultural committees, include Sadie and Vernon, and even more with with how we make our decisions on how we protect sites, not only on reservation, but off res too. So with that, we want to try to implement our version of ARPA, which is Archaeological Resource Protection Act. There are violation and fines. We need to find a fee schedule, and we need to introduce our own law enforcement with the tribal game wardens and our police in what that means to assess any of the investigations or fines with an attached schedule that we've developed with our preservation board. So again, this is we're trying to do is work ahead and find development of this element of our office, but also and trying to find a good way to include both cultural committees in our work. So adding the 2 positions there, I think I heard Tony Kashola mention to the Salish elders that this is not to replace our time that we have per month, but we're doing our best as an office to work with our elders a lot so that we make sure that by the time we do we do ask for any of the elder participation, or if we need to make an important decision at the elder advisory committee meeting, when they have all the folks there that could give us some direction that we need, like the one we're working on with the Bad Rock Canyon, with the MDOT. There, we took a lot of trips there with the elders, and we bring it up every month that we're working on that and working towards the goal of backing up our own ethnography, because we write a lot of ethnographic reports. So we just want to make sure that that we have all our ducks in a row when we're working forward on stuff. So we do have the funding for these positions.
We have an account that we call the fee to service that we have uploaded. We have about 75,000 in there that would help go towards it. And with council approval, we would like to use some of the mitigation funds to help pay towards our wages.
Yeah, we have a BPA Chief Cliff Mitigation Fund, which we need to request use for, but there's 3 focuses on how we can spend the mitigation, and that one, I think the first one was to try to buy that Snyder property that's right underneath Chief Cliff there, where they have the little mining operation. Second is language enhancement, and third is our preservation program needs. Now, the original amount on that was $425,000. And we have used parts of that fund for purchase of a GPR piece of equipment. I think that was $48,000. And right now that's currently at SKC, so that Tony Berthelot and his students have a chance to try to learn how to operate that machine there, and then help us learn how to do it too. And then I think we spent some on like up to $8,000 on some equipment and desks and things we needed for our office, but we haven't really touched that at all. And what we would do is request and work with Ruth to see if we can spend a bit on that with on our 2 elder positions here too as well. But we do have a little bit of a surplus with some of the work we do with our contracts yearly too. Now, in working with the cultural committees, I think it would be pretty good to write them into our contracts, because there would be a number of meetings that we would go to. And right now, I know for the Kootenai elders, we would probably enlist the help of Francis Ald. He has approached us and let us know that he does want to step back into the cultural resource work. So he would be the representative from the KCC. And we did bring it up to the elders at the last meeting there in Mission. to Sadie and the Elder Advisory that we would also pick one from there too. We don't know, we haven't developed it to a point where we know that we don't know if if the two candidates want to work full-time. We're thinking that they would probably start part-time until they kind of figure out if they're in the retirement status, how that would work with their Social Security and other things like that. But again, we're gonna work with the delegates as good as we can. And in the end, though, I think this is more about strengthening our communication and just seeing if we can hit that point where a preservation board is effective and works pretty good within our little group of boards we have within the tribe here. So.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. I have a question. So what kind of outreach do you guys do with the information and the knowledge that you're gathering? How are you systematically sharing this with the community? So our tribal members have this knowledge also.
We do have an open library. We actually have a functioning library within our office. However, most of the information, it is copies of what both cultural committees have and what the Montana SHPO has, so it's shareable. And we do get requests quite often for folks that would like to come in and check it out, and they have. So it's open. We have an open library. If there are some sites or sensitive sites or some information that we were told not to share unless so-and-so knows, then that's the protocol we would use. But there is a bit of a protocol of we're talking intangible sites, we're talking songs, and some things that go with some places, which give us a reason to go out there and do our work. For instance, right now there's a site on Kootenai National Forest, which is located right south of Libby, and there's 3 rock formations there that are important to our Sanka people. There's songs and a spiritual connection to all 3 of those. Getting like further than that, we would need permission to just plain share that out, but we don't gatekeep anything at all, though. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah, because I think this information is really important to share to tribal members. I would think if you're a tribal member and you want to know this information, this is part of, I mean, the tribe doesn't, CSKT as a government doesn't own it. You don't own it. She doesn't own it. I don't own it. It belongs to all of us, this information. And not everybody was fortunate enough to grow up to have some of that knowledge. And so I would think as a tribe, if we are investing money as a government in collecting this, we would want to make it as accessible as possible to our members. Because, the more we have that kind of knowledge, the stronger our sense of identity is, the stronger our sense of belonging is. It strengthens us to have that information. And, a lot of people didn't have that, and it's not their fault. And I could see, if some non-Indian wants to come in and, go through it, I would absolutely be in favor of not allowing that or restricting that information. But I think if you're a tribal member, you would want to encourage people or maybe develop programs where you educate people, like a seminar or a class or something like that. One of my relatives in the Kalispel tribe is a cultural leader. And I asked one of his coworkers, I said, who gets access to this stuff that you guys are collecting? All these stories in Salish, who can access it? And I said, do you restrict it? And they laughed and they said, why would we do that? We want our people to have this. We want to make it as accessible as possible. Nothing is restricted if you're a tribal member. They want you to come in and it's welcoming. And I think that's how ours should be too.
Yep. I'd say that our library is really built as reaction to what undertaking we are working on though as well. So we might not have everything that maybe the cultural committees might have in their library as far as, and I'd probably compare the Kalispel tribes to what Thompson Smith has probably collected and with Sadie and Tony Senior. I'd say that their library is probably comparable to that one. Ours is only, we've only built this library based on every large undertaking that we've ever done. So that's a lot of ethnographic with the BPA power lines and other things. So we literally made copies of what we would need to write about in an ethnographic report without actually saying what's there. So we'd have to be eloquent and not exploit ourselves. But I know what you mean. And again, for our library, it's open. And I can follow up on developing some kind of program or just put it out there that people can come in and just check out what we have. We have a lot of video I think is actually pretty interesting and would be pretty good for people to see. And also with the, we did have a little section within the Charcusa called This Week in History, where Mary Rogers would put out there an interesting story about what happened that day. And we had that going for a while, and we inquired to the Charcusa just recently if we can, just to see if we can start putting excerpts back in the paper itself. And we're still developing that as well. But overall, though, our library is open.
Yeah, I didn't know did any of you know their library's open? That anyone could just go in there? I didn't until just now. So I think that's not widely known for the membership. And I've worked on a lot of history projects. And I've done a lot of research and I've bugged the culture committee for some information. I've done, I went out to families, interviewed families, got information straight from like the descendants of whoever I was writing about. But I think as much as we can make this information accessible and sacred places and sacred sites. And I think that, there's an opportunity to educate people and maybe take them to some of these places that they've never been to. So, and part of my duties on tribal council, I got to go to Prim Meadow. And it was really emotional. It was surprisingly emotional for me because, there were places where our people put hands on the trees. It was touched by our people, and I had never been there before. So there's a lot of places that, a lot of tribal members are disconnected from physically, but that are still significant to us, that remember us. Even though I hadn't been there before, I could feel that the land recognized me and the land knew that I belonged there. So I think creating opportunities to bring people back to some of those places would be really, I think, important for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's great. On our part, we'll work on that development. We did have a little, there was a time when we were moved to 2 different places from when we used to have the wing up here. So our library wasn't as impressive, or we wouldn't really want anyone to go down there and look how we had to fit in a little space versus another space. And but it is possible, and we will work on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Danielle.
Thank you. I completely support this, and if I could make the motion to accept their, that's my words, org chart, to approve their org chart going forward. And then, Kevin, I had a gentleman, talk about a couple unmarked graves down on one of his lease lots. I'll get you his contact information when we're done here and see if we can reach out to him. I'm supposed to go for a ride with him tomorrow to kind of look and see where he's talking about, but I'll give you his phone number.
Yeah, we can accompany you on that.
Okay.
Down there if you'd like.
That sounds great. Thank you.
$5 a picture. Just kidding.
I believe we have a motion by Danielle to approve the org chart. And we have a
Comment?
Second, yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. Kevin, thanks for coming in. Couple items that I wanted to mention was any further discussion on the Lake Koocanusa items on how we're going to move forward with getting a repository or even getting an architect in place to start designing a place for those items.
So I just got an email just recently from Matthew Punky, the representative from the U.S. Army Corps that we're working with on the grant. Now, we were approved for that grant. However, they're not sure when they're going to release the funds on that. And when we learn about that time or the date when they'll release the funds, then our tribe can go ahead and hire an architect after that.
Okay.
I would like to invite him to come in and make a presentation, though. He does like coming down here quite.
That would be great. Kevin, I'm not really sure what the plans for the tribal preservation office is yet on if that's going to be your guys' home out there permanently or not, or whatever. But in the future, I would really like us to consider naming either our future repository building or preservation after Wayne Left Hand. You know, Wayne's been with the program for a number of years. He's contributed a lot. And I think it would be just great if we can acknowledge him in some way. So just wanted to just mention that. I don't expect a response, but I just wanted to put that on your,
That's a great
put that on your radar.
Yeah, I never thought about that. I've never named a building before, so I never thought about it. But that's a great idea. I think we would do that. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I just have one. I know Ruthie and Greg are here. We're ready to take action on another item. So you're talking about making these folks part-time and probably based upon your funding opportunity. I would imagine that you mentioned a piece of property, and of course Francis has been deeply involved with trying to protect that area.
Oh, yeah.
Are you sure he's going to be okay with
Yeah.
switching that money out? Yeah. Go ahead, Martin.
And I would make the suggestion for Mike Dergalo Senior for combined naming of that building.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
No problem. So funding is kind of positions would be part-time based on funding availability. Is that?
Yeah.
And
we're
these folks would remain on, I imagine they're already on the elders committees.
Yeah. So that I
It'd be
think that's
dual
where
duty.
we'd have to develop some kind of plan.
Right.
And
Can't double dip.
Yeah, and I work pretty close with Tony and our other department heads on that.
Yeah, good.
But there's money there. We just gotta smartly put it together so there's longevity.
I see great benefit to this, especially when you talk about the Good Neighbor Authority. And then, of course, we're working on trying to develop conservation easements on private lands outside of, well, on and off the reservation or Aboriginal territory to try to protect the resources on those private lands and then develop access for our membership to that. When you're talking about engaging law enforcement or legal action against somebody who's violating, you're talking about a board that is required for that? Do we already have the board or we don't have a board?
No, we use the elder committees as our preservation board in the past, but we've I'd say that we've had such a contract load, a regular work plan load. It's taken, I think if our office is 26 years old, 27, it's taken this long to get to a point where we can actually see ahead of us and actually find some kind of prosecution or a way to prosecute violations. We're finally there.
Good.
But yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's good. Okay, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Great. Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Tom,
Go ahead, Jen.
Mike, Will you? Hey, we just have some visitors here.
Oh.
They just wanted to come look in the chambers.
Hey,
but
Mike.
Can you also take a
Yes,
quick little break?
council,
They would
I got some visitors here and I'll turn them over to, my leaders. I'm just a driver.
Oh, okay,
But-
this is the housing
Just a
convention.
brief minute, they wanted to come in and tour the complex. We've been taking them up and down the res, so
Okay.
I'll let Jason and them take over.
Hey, Jody, hey, Jason.
Good morning.
Hey, what a rough crew you got there.
Yeah, be careful. So, the Unaha meeting, we're hosting it, and that covers, 2 HUD regions, Region 3 and 5. So we have Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska. And then that's all, just kidding. But there's 34 members in the Unaha, so 34 different tribal housing entities and programs. And so we are touring them through we went through Turtle Lake, then we went through Maggie Ashley and Agate Court, and we just went through the Recovery Village. And then we had time, so we just dropped by on you. So they could see, this is what councils are supposed to look like. Just kidding. But if you guys, I don't know if you want to say a few words. Carol did give the welcoming yesterday to open off our meeting in a good way. And I don't see her right now, but she's usually always there in that seat. And so if you guys want to say anything to our congregation.
I was drafted on as the tour guide, and so I've been talking from the bus and kind of talk a little bit about the history of the tribe and numbers and processes of election and all of that. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for the tribal council while we're here. But we have, I think, 18 of the 34 tribes were present at roll call yesterday, and so tribes from all over the region, and it's been just so impressive to Jody to give them an opportunity to see some of the housing progress and things that are happening, especially the last stop, the Recovery Village, and I mean that tugs at your heartstrings because that's a success, and there's things happening there that a lot of these folks are going to take home and again try to replicate, try to see what can be done for their own people. So good stuff, good stuff.
Well, thank you for being the tour guide there, Jason.
Yeah.
I recruited him this morning.
Oh, did you?
Voluntold.
Well, certainly on behalf of council, welcome to the Tribal Council Chambers and welcome to our reservation. And you know, the work that you do is critical. And throughout Indian country, wherever you're from, it doesn't get any more basic than providing shelter and homes for our memberships and our folks. And so, I mean, it's tremendous work, and we're deeply proud of our folks here in the program that we developed over the year from day one, and great dedication from previous managers like Bob Gochi and Jason, and of course now Jody. So yeah, welcome. And we are leaders in our own mind, and I'm just joking. We're here, and go ahead, James.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just gonna say it's $5 a picture, so everyone stop at the desk.
We have to fund government.
No, but thank you all for coming, and we appreciate Jason and Jody giving you a tour of our reservation, our beautiful homeland. We were opened up for settlement against our will in 1910. And so what was primarily left was all the mountains. So we're fighting over the valley lands. We have to buy practically every piece back, pay taxes on it, put it back into trust. So what was it, from 1935 till now, we've added up to, was it 53%?
65.
Is it 60?
65.
60, something like that, percent. So I think, was it a low of
35. The percentages have switched.
Yeah, so now we're majority owners of our land on our reservation again, and it's taken from 35 till even today, we're still buying land back and paying the taxes on it. When anybody says those Indians don't pay taxes, we all know that's hogwash. As a tribal government, we're paying about $500,000 in taxes, property taxes that we figured about. So, and we fight with our local county, Lake County. We went through Polson, that's where the county seat is. We have constant battles with them on a variety of issues, but we do work with them on some things as well, but they like to blame us for everything. But thank you for coming. Glad you had a good tour.
And on our housing board, there's one seat designated to a council rep, and James holds that seat, and then there's one alternate, and Danielle Matt is our alternate. And so they participate on our board, and then they're the liaison and move back and forth.
Jennifer?
Thank you. So I'm Jennifer Finley. I'm the council representative from Polson. And welcome to our homeland. And I think providing housing is extremely important, and it's one of the most important functions that I think it's one of the most important services to offer. And this entire continent is our homeland. And I am convinced that the land recognizes us and the land loves us. And I think every landscape, every piece of this land has something to teach us. And I think that our medicine is still here, and we're still blessed every time we're on our land, and we're wanted here, and we're welcomed, and we're always recognized. We're always loved by this place because we're from here, we're of this place. And before colonization, there was no such thing as homelessness. Every tribal person had a home and a safe, good place to live. And I think all tribal people, out of all the people in the United States, deserve to live with the utmost dignity, because this is our place. So thank you for the work that you do housing tribal people. It's very important work. And if it's really the basis of existence. If you don't have a good place to live, it's hard to do all the other things that you have to do. So it's a really important foundation for everything else that happens in Indian country. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Jennifer. Since you've taken the time to come here, we probably can offer up a few minutes if there is any questions from anybody for any of our representatives. Yeah, go ahead, the back.
Oh, and really quick, while Francis is coming up here, we also have Doug Marconi. He's the executive director of the National American Indian Housing Council. So Doug, he's in Indian housing, but at the national level. And then we have Randy Akers and Lori Roger and Elizabeth Altman, and they're from the HUD Office of Native American Programs. Oh yeah, Fannie Mae must be out in the foyer. So there's others too. Good.
Let's get a question, what's your relationship with, between you and, Director of Housing, so forth, how do you guys operate with her to continue on a positive relationship?
I didn't ask him to say that.
No, it's just that, I
Sure, Jody.
some ideas, because I'm not chairman of the board over Blackfeet Country. My name is Francis Squeeg Artipe, and my daughter, she goes to school in, SKC. And, they just won the, AHEC tournament last year in Minneapolis. So, and she's a tall one. And so I'm just trying to get some ideas to bring back to our council members on your relationship with the housing director and so forth, and with housing. If, you let them do their thing, and you guys just, let them do their things, get things squared away.
Any comments from council? James?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a councilman that's on the board, anytime council has issues, bring it to the board, but the board oversees the actual hiring of Jody and the activities there. But if there's issues that the council have, I bring it to the board. Board will talk about it, and then if we need to, we come in and visit with council about it. Jody comes in all the time with different grant proposals that need to be approved by the council and such, and oftentimes if we have a tribal member issue that comes up, she's available to, if we have a walk. So our council meetings are twice a week, and we don't have formal committee system. So at the beginning of the meeting, tribal members have the ability to come in and walk in and get on the agenda right off the bat before we start. And so we were a little bit late this morning because we had irrigators in and such. But in terms of working with housing, it's a pretty good relationship. You know, there are bumps in the roads and such, but we work through them. But pretty much the council lets the housing department do what it needs to do to get things done. You know, there, of course, when there's complaints, we visit with Jody about it and the board and such. So, I mean, it's a pretty good relationship over the years. I mean, it hasn't, council really, for the most part, I think Jason can attest to that too, for his years, pretty much just stays out of housing issues, but you know, there's always those issues. Why is this house vacant for, you know, a year or 2 years or whatever? And then Jody will come in and say, well, we're short of contractors, or we're, you know, this is on this, you know, and explains what's going on with the housing. So we do try to keep, you know, when people get kicked out for the point system, that's always a contentious issue and difficult. You know, we have people with drug issues, and that, I think you all stopped over at the project that's just brand new too. And so, you know, that project's really exciting to see how we can help our folks in recovery. But I think the big thing is that we try really hard to stay out of what's going on at housing and not, that's when you start having problems, is when council jumps in there and everybody on council knows how to do the job better than the housing director. Then that's when you start having problems. And I was chairman years ago, and we had a couple council members that were always trying to jump into the tribal court system, and like, wait, stay out of there or we're gonna be having court in here, us being doing it. And that's the big thing with the council, is they just need to learn their roles and responsibilities. You hire the director, the board hires a director. They need to do their job. If they're not doing their job, then you go through other means rather than council start assigning houses and such. And that's the other thing. We don't allow council members to individually point, well, my family's gonna be in that house and this house and the other house. That doesn't happen. So, and I remember years ago, I had a lady call from another reservation and say, I want you to get my son out of the tribal jail over there. I said, I'm sorry, but the council does not get involved in that. Your son will be provided a legal representation through the defender's office. So it's basically knowing those lines and those practices.
So you don't make resolution to keep a person in a house?
What's that?
You don't make a resolution to keep a person in a house?
No, I don't know of any. I know we've
things like that, you know.
yeah, I know we've encouraged housing to try to keep people in that, you know, at times, and it just depends on the circumstance too. You know, like we had a veteran in the other day, a few months ago, and Jody's tried to help that person get into housing. So, you know, those cases.
Okay, I was just wondering how you handle it.
Yeah, so they will relay concerns that are brought to them. And lately they've been coming through Jennifer. She's behind the scenes working the keyboard. And so she will ask, you know, for a follow-up on something, and then I let her know and she relays it. And so, and Carol Langford will often like ask for an update, but that's the difference of like, they aren't telling me how to do their job. So they receive one side of the story.
Yeah.
And then they have to know what my side is, and then they'll say like, okay. And then, you know, the situation makes sense once they know my side of the story. They only hear one side.
Okay, that's the way we are down there, way. If we make a decision as a board, you know, that usually kind of trying to be final, but then our people with years of experience, they went to council. No, so greasy wheel gets the oil, I guess, you know, so that's things like that. I just wondered how you guys handled that.
So, and undergirding all this, Squee, and the council has, I've appreciated this over the years, because, you know, sometimes you gotta learn the hard way, but undergirding what's happening here at Salish Kootenai is a legal foundation. there's an ordinance in place passed by the tribal council that established, say, the CSKT Housing Authority. And that ordinance governs the relationship between the council and the board. Council never steps over those boundaries. And the council is expecting the board to govern itself by its own bylaws and do things right and have one employee. And that happens here. And James made it very clear, it's deferred to the board to decide how things are going to be handled. And then the board is expected to have good policies in place. Tribe, this council especially over the years has shown that it follows the policies of all of its programs. It doesn't overstep those boundaries because that's a strength, right? That's how we get things done. Live in your lane, stay in your lane, do what needs to be done by policy. The policies, living documents, they're imperfect, they need to be updated. They lead in that change too. So that's something this tribe has enjoyed. Its strength, it's enjoyed. over the
Integrity.
years.
Yeah, that's what, we did. We, kind of asked questions about who has succeeded and so forth in this area of housing, all so forth. So we brought Bob, we brought Jason over to give us, to help us out on improving our policies and procedures and so forth. So it had a lot to do with what we're trying to get, do in the future for a positive, influence on our people. So Becky's pocket is really rich. No.
I heard that.
Just the Blackfeet money in his pocket.
Oh, about time we win something.
Yeah. So, was in Florida a month ago and I come walking out and I say, hey, Jason, how you doing? She's talking to me and said, oh, hold on, Jason. My twin.
Greatest compliment he's ever received.
Well, thank you for your answer and, I appreciate your time and ex-gapi.
Hi, I'm Christy McCarthy Waite. I think some of you know, well, my family, of course. Bob Gochi's my uncle. Vicky Gochi was my mother. I'm the one that's always sending Jody in here to have resolutions passed because I'm the Housing Authority's grant writer. So I just wanted to say thank you for the support that this council always gives for the things that Jody and I come up with, or Jody comes up with, and I always know that we can count on the tribal council's support. I feel like I arrived in my profession when I got to start working for my own tribe. So Jason hired me, I don't know, a dozen years ago or so, but I just want to say how proud I am that I get to write and help Jody bring these projects to fruition. But I really enjoy the relationship she has with you all, because it's not that way for all of my clients. So just wanted to say hello.
Well, thank you. I mean, you're the classic example why we're successful is great staff and staff that care. So thank you so much.
Yeah, when we were going through the tour, I was telling her daughter, who's here with us, your mom wrote the grant to build those 7 homes and to build those 5 homes. And so without Christy's grant writing expertise, we wouldn't be able to be as successful as we are in getting the funding. And so, you know, she's part of that feeder to the program. So millions and millions of dollars.
Be careful, you know, there's other people listening, so everybody's trying to steal grant writers.
She saves a special spot for us.
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, we're kind of behind schedule, so unless any
Okay,
other
thank
council.
you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, take care, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, Mike.
Probably got a parking ticket out here you can get sent. I parked the charter bus out in the middle of the parking lot. Send the bill to them.
I thought that was your middle name, Mike.
Tom,
Double Park Mike.
Tom, can we go into executive?
Weekend.
Yeah.
The leader.
It's like, that's gotta be, yep, that's Joy's. Thank you. That's a visit, yeah.
We should stay there.
Hey, Jason. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you. Hope your visit's good. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Of course, Douglas.
Yeah.
And I'm also a member of the Nez First Nation. So
How are you? Okay.
see relatives.
Cousin? Oh, yeah, I'm part of Nez Perce. Beth, thank you. We'll be moving in executive session, but we'll take a 5-minute break. All right, we're back into open session. Go ahead, James.
I make a motion to the resolution enacting fiscal year 2025 appropriations.
Motion by James, second by Martin. Any further discussion? See none, all those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Ruth, for your due diligence and coming in many times because it's so important. Thank you. Thank you. We will now
Back into
executive session for our. Go ahead, Carol, did you make that motion? Or who was it? Carol? Carol makes a motion to appoint Jason Adams to the bank board.
Yes, that's correct.
Eagle Bank Board, second by Martin.
Eagle Bank Corporation.
Eagle Bank Corporation.
No,
S&K Bank Board.
He was right.
We'll screw it
Get
up.
this down. It's past my bedtime, just so you guys know. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. And Ralph, you know, the college course looks wonderful. Whatever. I don't know, is that under your direction? No. Oh, oh. Well, then that's why I look so goddamn good then. Thank golly. Thanks, Maggie.
Can we go back into executive?
Yeah, we'll move back into executive. Now into regular session. Oh, from across, the boat people, canoe. They're over to college. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Come on up, grab a chair. Yeah. Come on up. The mics work by you push a button, get a red light, and then you're active.
Hello, yeah, thanks for having us. Guess I'll start off just with the introductions first for us. My name is Dan Richardson with KLJ Engineering. I'm a consultant working with the DOT as the project manager for this Bedrock Canyon study project here. Go, Chris.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having us here. Chris DiVenero. I'm also with KLJ assisting Dan with the study effort here.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laura Evilsizer. I'm the Department of Transportation's archaeologist. So my role is just to make sure that cultural resources are being considered.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Chandel. I'm the MDT project manager, so responsible with working with KLJ and the MDT staff to make sure the project is delivered successfully. So thank you for having us.
Well, it's good to meet you all. Thank you for coming. Here for moral support. You got their back? Okay.
All right. So to start off, I guess I was just going to give a brief overview of the project extents and the alignment of kind of where the study is encompassing here. So the study is in Bedrock Canyon on US 2, just outside of Columbia Falls. It's 1.75 miles of road. reconstruction through the canyon there. So the current alignment there is one that was constructed in the 1930s. And what we're doing is studying different alternatives to improve the safety and operation of US 2 through Bad Rock Canyon. It studies its aim to identify the roadway features, the physical constraints, characteristics, any issues or opportunities to improve the safety and functionality of the road. And one thing, just want to note that this study that here is just possible alternatives, and this presentation is not ranking the alternatives or anything, and there's not a selected alternative in here. It's more of here are some of the options that have been come up with and discussed a little further. So we broke this into 3 different segments here, just for ease here. There's a west, central, and an east segment. They all have unique features to them, and hence the reason we broke them up as far as being able to visit about the 3 different segments. The first one in the yellow on the screen there, that's the just about a mile or so of road reconstruct. And what that is, it's going to fix some horizontal curves, flattening the curves out, making it safer, looking at some snow drifting issues that are through there. So working with the vertical alignment for that one. And with that as well as improve the sight distance, which will in turn improve the safety of that segment there. The central segment in the cyan there, that's where most of this presentation is focusing on, because that's really the pinch point through this corridor here. We have options A through E that we're going to discuss here further just in detail. And essentially it's either moving the road, avoiding impacts to the river, or avoiding impacts or encroachments to the large outcropping on the bedrock on the south side of the highway there. And we'll go over the different alternative options here just more in detail as we progress along the presentation here. And then the last one is that east segment there is in red, and that is kind of to tie into the existing alignment on the east there. So it's more widening it and just tying into how the horizontal alignment is throughout there. One thing I guess to note too is this segment is connecting there's trails on both sides. So it is to part of it is to connect the trail system to have a continuous trail through this whole corridor as well. So these next slides are going to be going through some of these alternatives or the options here. This is that first west segment, and there's a rendering on the screen we have there, so you kind of see what the build out would kind of look like essentially. And so that's matching the lane configuration to the south there, and tying in and essentially flatten the curves and providing better sight distance. Like I said, doing some of the snow drifting stuff, and then continuing this 5-lane as far as it can feasibly be brought before we reduce it down through the canyon, where we may not have the horizontal availability to go 5 lanes through the whole segment there. And so we'll transition down to the 2 12-foot lanes at that point with the shoulders. So with that, I'm gonna let Chris kind of take this over with a couple of these different options here, and kind of go through the different pros and cons through those.
Okay, one question. Yes, I'm not terribly familiar with the project, but was there any scoping of a eastbound tunnel?
Eastbound tunnel, there were several different options that were initially looked at years ago, and they were either thrown out for certain reasons. The tunnel was one of them. The rock is not super stable through there as one of the options. I know there's also options looking for bridges going across the river as well. So this is more focused on the current alignment, just based on the constraints that initial study found.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, okay, so I want to shift gears here a little bit and talk about a few of the options that Dan was hinting towards earlier. And once again, the options that I want to walk through A through E here this afternoon are really focused in that central portion of the corridor. Option A listed here is an alignment that moves the roadway closer to the south than encroaching on the large rock croppings that everyone's familiar with, and avoiding any impacts to the river or minimal impacts to the river. Options B through D are all a little bit different, where it's avoiding that rock outcropping and then pushing the roadway alignment out towards the river. Option B is an improvement that uses rock fill and fill slopes. Pretty common for what a lot of people see, you know, with the large rocks rip-rap around to protect and hold the roadway up. Option C, a little bit different. It's an engineered option that uses retaining walls, you know, a vertical wall that holds the roadway up and out of the river. And then option D, very similar, although it's a cantilever structure, which is, at least in my mind, kind of similar to a bridge where it has a pier and a roadway suspended above that could either be near the banks or even possibly located in the river itself. And then finally, option E is something that is really just a combination of options A through D, but trying to focus on maybe key areas for each one of those treatments. So let's take a look at option A. Here's a visual just to give everyone an idea of what I just talked about, where what we see here on the south side of the road, the purple is really the impact area. All of these options do include a standard 12-foot lane with 6-foot shoulders, as well as a pedestrian path that Dan mentioned in the beginning to provide that connectivity on both sides of the corridor. Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so some more visuals here to get an idea of potentially what that would look like. So here in red, you can see that large rock outcropping, the bad rock formation that would potentially have to be removed or, you know, scaled back, if you will, to accommodate this type of alignment. And, you know, once again, this is just one of the options that we're looking at for feasibility. I'm going to go through pros and cons of each one of these. And please, if you have questions along the way, just stop me and I'm happy to answer. So taking a look at some of the pros and cons of having a roadway alignment that encroaches into the outcroppings is one, I think is most important, is it really does avoid impacts to the river itself. There's obviously a lot of complications that go along with that, either environmentally or, you know, as far as building a structure of such, an improvement that impacts the river. By encroaching into the rocks, you do have an impact on the riverside trees and shrubs and other flora, as well as, you know, that's, excuse me, I said it the exact opposite here. where it does avoid the impacts to the river, it does maintain the existing flora on the riverside. The cons, of course, are the impacts to the rocks themselves, encroachments to, you know, sensitive Section 4F lands, potential cultural impacts. The large rock outcropping does have some instability, or at least some assumed instability, so some potential impacts there that, you know, could result in high risk for constructability or additional costs. Moving along to option B. So then once again, these options B through D are really moving the alignment towards the riverside. And once again, the purple is what we see for the impact on the riverside. Same type of configuration with 12-foot standard lanes, 6-foot shoulders in the pedestrian path. So here's a visualization of what that might look like. You know, the roadway here is shifted more towards the riverside. You can see some of the rocks kind of on the inside there towards the river that would protect the new structure as well. And then the pedestrian walkway, which would have a potential separation from the road for additional safety as well. Some of the pros here is it is the most resilient of the options, certainly on the riverside. fluctuations with the amount of water in the river, during spring runoff or any other events. It's probably one of the most cost-effective of the options that we're presenting today. We'll note that it is a little bit more attractive for the engineered type of fixes on the riverside, meaning it does potentially have more of a natural look opposed to a vertical wall or some other engineered structure. And then it does provide easier access to the river, opposed to the other options. And the reason that I bring this up is we know that people do like to use Fisherman's Rock there. People do like to access the river. Wildlife certainly does want to have access to the river. There's documented movements there. So this option does provide a little bit easier access to the river. Some of the cons are the fill slopes do encroach into the river, so those are the impacts that I unfortunately was talking about in A, but would have probably more of an impact on the river than the other options we present. This does change the existing shoreline, which hydraulically does have some issues. And then the impact to trees and shrubs and whatnot on the riverside would certainly be noticed. However, then finally, is probably a little bit more extensive on the permitting side due to that impact to the river itself. And here is a couple more visuals to take a look at potentially what that might look like. You can see the before improvements. Obviously, there's some trees and shrubs near the Fisherman's Rock with the guardrail there. The new alignment certainly would remove those and push the roadway closer to the river. Any questions with that one?
Question, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Jane.
Just an observation. Can you go back to that last picture?
Absolutely.
You know, the kind of the, I don't know, my brain went to pictures of non-static railing and such. I know that adds more money, but making it more appealing or something rather than just a static handrail, like you go to some places and they've got fish or something that kind of accentuates the static look of it. I know like in Missoula with a couple of their bridges there, back in the past, they were looking, okay, just a static bridge, or do we do some little decorative things, something that, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, well, not 50 years ago, more like 100, 150 years ago, you go down to Missoula or any major city, you can see the distinct way people built things. They went way up to the top of the building, put decorations up there all across the scenery and stuff. And the only reason I say that is because we've all driven through there. I've driven through there, and it's a beautiful area. Absolutely. And so it's not necessarily a critique, but it's, I know it's not on our decision making, but at least add a little pizzazz.
Sure. No, and
I don't know, no offense to any of you folks, but I mean, because we all notice that. You go to places and where you see they've done a little bit of a pizzazz to something, we've all seen those kind of things. And so when I looked at that picture, I'm like, well, that's nice, but anyway, just
and
my opinion.
Thank you for your comment. And I it's not that I disagree or anything. What we're presenting today is really we'll say the engineering standard to meet guidelines, right? To keep people safe and have that separation. As far as the visual appeal, I also prefer something, with a little pizzazz. And I know that those things can be done. This is probably the forum to mention something like that, as a potential desire. So at that point, it probably comes down to cost more than anything else.
Yeah, go ahead, Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Preservation was in here
talking about, a little bit about this today, that they're gonna bring on some other members for the preservation department. But, I believe they were up there once with you folks looking at this area. What side of the highway are they concerned about? Is it the rocks or is it the riverside or what?
So, I guess that's an interesting question. So, the concern is the overall, the corridor itself and, the safety of the alignment with, you know, turns through there. And then the proximity, of course, between, you know, sandwiched between a rock and the river in this case, right? So in order to try to improve safety, to bring it up to the current level of standard that MDT would like it to be, means that it's just, you know, widening the road, adding these additional features, and trying to make that fit is the difficulty, rather probably so than the rock or the river. However, there are some pretty interesting issues with, you know, the slopes to the south creating springtime runoff, some other hydraulic issues and whatnot that you could potentially argue that, you know, maybe it's that side. But all in all, I think it's trying to find, you know, the best solution to fit a standard roadway through the section to better improve safety and, quite honestly, level of service as well. Did that answer your question? Kind of.
So, just of course, it's the obvious, these guys are getting to some of the obvious things, right? Which Chris and Dan and et al. are here to kind of hear. So is the main stem of the Flathead River a scenic river?
I'm sorry,
Is the main stem of the Flathead River a scenic river?
Go ahead and
Sure.
answer that.
This particular stretch is before the designation of a wild scenic river. So this designation is not right here.
And does this road, the primary access road to Glacier National Park and the scenic, going to the high scenic?
Correct. Yeah.
Road, going to the sun?
Yes, correct.
And so really its primary use is for probably recreation and tourism. Is that correct?
You know, we could probably assume that that's probably a lot of the users, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's in your best interest to make this as beautiful as possible, right?
We would like.
Is that like common sense?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then it's how do you make this a beautiful thing and an experience that the visitor, the traveler can safely do and maybe pick up the level of service. That's what you're after, probably, improve safety.
Correct.
And so, yeah, you know, engineers will always do straight line type of things. And so, you know, straight lines really don't exist in Mother Nature. That's pretty much a given. So, yeah, whatever you do to make this aesthetically pleasing was what you'd want to do and protect the greenery and the river course. I can't say that in the future that river wouldn't be designated as a wild and scenic river. And you would have standards for the built environment in this location. It could be. It could be something that happens next year in Congress. So then what would you do? Would it be the course set for you then on what you would recommend for this spot?
It would set some additional constraints as to what the river could look like from the riverside, especially. It definitely set some additional constraints.
Yeah, I think it's a corridor, not just the river's edge, but
yeah,
well, the Scenic River Act protects the corridor, so I would assume the highway would be part of that corridor. So it may be like a scenic highway that you really can't change much of the highway itself.
No.
Could be we have to live with it the way it is today. Is that an alternative then?
It's currently not one that we're presenting here today. You know, our objective as far as the study is to try to improve safety, and a no build option in this case certainly wouldn't have an improvement.
Go ahead, Danielle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does the walking path, I guess I've driven that road and I don't ever remember seeing a walking path really, is that connect to one in town behind the way, or does it connect to something upward? Where does that go to?
Yeah, so it connects both sides. So there is a trail on both sides, is essentially, or a walking path area for both sides. So So it's kind of the pinch, the final piece to connect the walking path through, to be able to safely walk through this corridor.
And it's a fairly newly developed, you know, there probably was, you know, an animal trail to, you know, something a little bit more, and now it's, you know, a pretty nice structure as far as, you know, its integrity.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Yeah, I guess my comment just as much as possible, just, you know, think out of the straight line box as much as possible. Because when you're thinking of that, you know, that proposed walk site, you know, it's just, because it's like what we have here, it's just kind of static. But I think, you know, it's kind of the showcase of Montana, that whole roadway to Glacier Park, you know, everyone from the world's coming through there. And I think, you know, I guess as much as possible, I don't want you all to be thinking of them as a constraint, but that you all's work and our input and the state of Montana's input and the US Department of Transportation and whomever the feds are involved in this, it's a showcase road. I mean, everyone coming through here is generally going through that road to Glacier National Park, and from all over the country, from all over the world. And it'd be just nice to have, I guess that's what I for lack of a better word, was pizzazz, but you pick a different word. I guess that's just kind of the way I'm feeling. It's a showcase corridor, and I agree with the vice chairman's concept as well, and her comments is that, you know, let's think of it as it's actually one of the showcase roadways in Montana that people are going through. And yeah, anyway, and potentially be walking through, so biking and such, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Unless we have any other questions or comments, I'll buzz through the remaining options that we want to present today, just to give you an idea of what those look like. And once again, I think that your point is well taken, that, you know, items or elements of beautification can probably be incorporated in any of these. So I believe we were starting on retaining walls, correct? Okay. And once again, you know, this is more on the riverside to avoid the rock outcroppings. Some of the pros here is it is a lot more resilient to flooding than the other options. And I think that's probably pretty obvious to folks. If you have a tall vertical wall, it takes so much water to get above that. It does minimize some of the roadside erosion that has occurred throughout the years. This can be accomplished by adding some additional hydraulic features. We'll say it's quicker construction than what we're going to talk about in the next option. And I think that's an important item to consider, especially in this corridor, because there's really not too many options for a detour through. So construction windows are always important to the traveling public, of course. Some of the cons, once again, really on the riverside, where walls could encroach into the river at certain areas. Permitting, once again, is a challenge when you're doing anything within the river or its high water boundaries. The cost is a little bit higher. And then opposed to the fill slopes, it does make it a little bit more difficult for folks or for animals to access the river in any of those points where a retaining wall could be located. And this is not going to look a whole lot different. It's pretty hard to show this unless we were looking from the riverside. But once again, instead of having, the rocks that you would typically see on a shore side, it'd be that vertical retaining wall. I have seen some pretty cool things that people have done to that, with fish and other, other murals that are pretty cool. That's something that certainly could be looked at as well. So option D, the cantilever structure, this is probably the most complicated of any of them. Once again, it does have a bridge type of, engineered structure. and we'll take a look at some of the pros and cons here. Pros, first of all, is it could have minimal impacts to the river. You can see in this rendering where the pier is buried in the shoreline, and you could extend the roadway surface out beyond the shore's edge to, pick up some of that width. It could be moved above the floodplain, meaning the structure could be raised above current grade to keep it out, or for other potential options, which could, potentially be with, underpasses or something like that for pedestrians or animals or something. We've seen quite a bit around here.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, sorry. I was wondering how far do you think they'd have to go down to put the piers in, whatever the term is?
It's certainly depending on where it's at. I mean, typically they'd want to reach, a pretty sound foundation, bedrock or whatnot. If that's not found near, the river's edge, sometimes those could be quite a bit deeper,
And what they would do here too is look at how the river's affecting scouring the river bottom. So that pier would need to go to at least below that scour depth for safety reasons there.
Do you, Chris, do you have a minimal length of where cantilever would go?
As far as extending out towards the river or the pier?
The length of the highway section.
So, really the cantilever, I think what we're trying to show, is probably spot dependent. I would envision in this option, probably really closer to the large rock, formation.
Does, MDOT own any cantilever highway structures?
I don't know, that's a good question.
We do some bridge types. I think the Higgins Bridge is one where we have cantilevered the pedestrian path out for people to walk on. I don't know if we've really done a lot of cantilevers for vehicles, but I think we could do in my mind, we'd hopefully do the same thing where the cantilever would provide the area for the pedestrians and bikers to move along that area.
Yeah, at least where the payload, the weight limit is lesser.
It makes me nervous. I know that CLJ would do a great job.
Nothing else? Okay, thank you. And then, just once again, just through the cons, just to finish it out here, I would say it's probably the highest cost of any of the options. I think everyone probably understands that. And then, once again, unless you looked at grade or bringing this above grade, it certainly would cause potential conflicts, or I shouldn't say conflicts, just make it more difficult for pedestrians or animals to access the river at that point.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chair. So I guess looking at all the different pros and cons, if there's, any activity, earthquake wise, is there any thought as to which one of these would be, I guess in any severe earthquake, any of them are going to be subject to the conditions of the earthquake, but are any of these probably more resilient in an earthquake type of situation, or?
I'm going to say, as far as just being conservative here, the fill slope is probably going to be the most resilient. And once again, it's really just piling on a bunch more dirt and rock, where the retaining wall and the cantilever structures would be looked at for seismic issues. However, there's certain unknowns, of course, and if it was localized, if an earthquake happened at that point, I would put my money on the fill slope. So that really kind of gets us through the options that we were looking at. And once again, it's just really hard for it to show in the rendering, but very similar into Ben's point, where most of that portion of the cantilevered structure would probably be on the pedestrian side and not so much on the road side. And I think with that, Dan wanted just to talk about maybe this option E, which is, more of a combination of using all these options to find the best solution. or a better solution.
Yeah, thank you. And it kind of goes to what you're asking about a length for the cantilever structure. And so that's what this option E would look at is how can we what would make sense for a fill slope versus a wall versus cantilever structure to basically melt all of them together essentially. And so looking at maybe the western portion could have some fill, but then through the pinch point of the Bad Rock area, it could be a cantilever bridge versus a wall or something. So it can look at not only just cost, but looking at the wildlife too, where they cross, where they need access to the river, where the pedestrians cross, where they need access to the river, and such like that. So really trying to piece them all together where we can. So it'd be more of a combination of all the different options here. So that would be just considered the option E through for this one here. So we would look at avoiding the impacts to the rock outcropping by moving it towards the flathead, but the river, and then, like I said, kind of using that all the different elements throughout the corridor through there. And there's a couple, just some visuals here as well, just what it would look like after some of the flora was removed, potentially based on what alternative or what option was selected. So the red dash is what would be removed through there, and then there's kind of a after the fact, so you can look up and see them out the hillside across the river there, with some of those trees removed through there. So, yep. And so I guess with that, that's our presentation here, and we're open for any other questions you may have. I know we answered a few of them through the presentation, but if you got some more, we're more than happy to try to see what we can do for answers for you.
Well, go ahead, James.
I guess I'm the filibuster person on this. I guess my comment is, back to reiterating it, is just thinking of how public would walk through this, and, if there's, maybe little pullouts for them to go fishing or take pictures or stop and sit on a bench or something, that kind of thing. I guess is just my point, because you're making a pedestrian area. Just try to do what we can to make it a showcase to the Glacier Park area.
Certainly.
I guess that's what people's gonna have in their minds. So anyway, thank you.
No, I appreciate your comments, James, and I think, Dan takes pride, and we all take a lot of pride in this project too, and we want to see something that we can be proud of, and I think that we can do something that would, working with you guys, maybe it's like some extending the retaining wall up with concrete and putting some decorative rock, and then, kind of mixing up the line, and I think we can look into benches. I think that's a great idea, and we know that people access the rock down there to fish, so we want to, maintain that as much as possible. So, and getting back to what I think maybe James's question was originally, which was about the cultural committee. So when we started this, we were we wanted to investigate the rock, but we kind of knew that it was not a good idea. And from what I found was that rock's incredibly unstable. And so MDT really doesn't want to go that route, because we risk the entire mountainside collapsing down into the river and blocking that off. And we knew that there was some tribal importance in that area as well. So we were hoping, that they would be happy that we were avoiding the rock, and that we would kind of settle on one of the river options. And from my understanding, the cultural committee didn't necessarily want to see those options on the river as well, and suggested that we present this to you. So that's, so we wanted to kind of get your guys' opinion on those impacts to the river. I think we could do something with the rock, which I think looks natural and actually helps, with fish and is more stable, and then also do the retaining wall option, which we can definitely do, like stamped concrete on the outside of those for the river people to look at, and do, you know, and hopefully in my mind, we would do, you know, a higher wall and maybe we could put some rock on it so it has that feel of glacier, like their rails, because I think if we could meet the guardrail certifications, I mean, I could promise you, I'd have to talk to someone in safety. I mean, they have to meet certain requirements, but I mean, I think there's options out there. Obviously, if we did something to that, we'd be like further encroaching to the river, which I feel pretty good that hopefully Dan could come up with some sort of solution and, but really it's a matter of getting your blessing of, we know that we're like, you know, between the rock and the river and something's got to budge. And not only is this, you know, this is a lot of people from Glacier and it's one of the prettiest roads in Montana, which are the prettiest roads in the United States. But it also is on US too. So people are traveling. I don't know where it starts, but from there, you know, back east all the way to the coast, there's semis coming through. So just improving the use of that to allow it to be more user friendly, because, you know, we hate seeing people die on our roads, and, you know, those people have our dads and moms and sons and grandparents. So we hate seeing people dying on Montana roads, and we want to do everything in our power to protect those people.
I appreciate that concern. My question is, of course, I've driven it my whole life, and I've never seen an accident there. Has there been accidents there, this section?
There has been, I think actually a couple, was it even a year ago, maybe, there was a semi, maybe it ran right into that rock, crashed right there.
Oh, he ran into the wall?
Into the wall, yeah, correct.
Oh, okay, so he fell asleep? Right. So really, it's not the road's fault, it's the driver problem.
I can't answer that, but it could be, or it could have.
Or the rock jumped out in front of him?
Yeah.
We did
So-
receive an email that you were requesting how many accidents were in the area, and in the last 5 years, I think was what we received yesterday, and we're gonna look into it. So we have to run some software to get the answer, and so we're happy to provide that to you. We weren't able to have it at this
Yeah,
point.
sure. The water courses are really, really important to us, and the water is very important to us. And of course, cultural sites are extremely important too. And this is a, you know, ancient travel corridor. It's our people who've earned a living there. This is a connection between us and our sister tribe in the Blackfeet Nation, and our access to the park resources and the Flathead National Forest and the important fisheries that's there. So it can't be overstated how important it is to us. I just don't know exactly what we're trying to fix. If this was a scenic highway, what would you be doing?
I'll just, so I started as a hydraulic engineer. Dan's also a hydraulic engineer, started as a hydraulic engineer. So we do value the importance of, the river. And I guess I've never worked on a scenic highway.